So let's talk about this Monday that I had a while back. A couple of these things are added, actually not from that specific Monday, but most of this happened as described. So let's walk through that Monday. Some of my Mondays start about Sunday at 2:30. This one certainly did. I get a call from the site administrator saying, hey, the site is slow. You may remember that's one of the incidents of the indicators of compromise that we talked about earlier, potential. We pull up the site from our vacation home in the Bahamas and it looks fine to me. We call the site admin, we say, hey, it looks fine. I don't know what your problem is. They're always bugging us with this kind of stuff. At 4:23, we get email from the site admin and they CC our boss and other management saying, hey, the site is still slow, customers are complaining. This is what's known as escalation. The site admin doesn't want to be on the hook for things went wonky and we didn't tell anybody, hence the CC to my boss. We pull up the site again. Oh, it is kind of slow. We book our flight home. 8:20 p.m., probably an airport somewhere in Newark. We get production services support email. We rebooted the web server and it's fine now. This is a frequent occurrence. Something is slow and we reboot it and suddenly everything is fine. For experienced folks in this field, this may mean that we know what's going on. We rebooted things which deleted every connection to that system. And when it came back up, everything was fine because nobody was connected and doing anything. The site admin thinks that's great because now his stats look good. I'm now extremely worried because I realize what this probably means is that this system was connected to a whole lot of other people and doing a whole lot of stuff. So now we're finally to Monday, 6:23 a.m. We get a call from the same organization saying, hey, it's slow again, and it looks like a bandwidth issue. Lots and lots and lots of outbound traffic. Our worst fears are realized, and by the way, on very little sleep. And so we infuse with coffee. I'll make special note, since this is a culinary expose, I'll make special note of the culinary aspects of this investigation while we jump on the bus. We arrive to pandemonium. Everyone is in a panic. The site is all but down. Zero traffic, zero real traffic to the website. Our customers aren't getting through. At this point, everybody knows about our little problem. Things aren't good. 7:05. We meet with everyone, right? This is part of our incident response plan. We've defined the roles and responsibilities. We have now gathered those people that are responsible, that should be helping us respond to this, into a room, and we're asking what's going on. One of our router folks, one of the infrastructure people, tells me this is a denial of service, tons of outbound traffic coming from the web server. And yet, our web logs don't show anything. How strange. The web server folks tell me it's not web traffic, it looks like BitTorrent. And by the way, we do not operate a BitTorrent node. Well, at this point we know we've been had. The web server is hacked. This is another kind of incident now. This is a kind where we know we have serious issues that we have to deal with immediately. So I look sadly at my empty coffee cup, knowing I'm not going to have time for a trip downstairs for a while. This is on 2 or 3 hours of sleep, so people are going to have to deal. 7:46 a.m. So I log into the web server, and let's start talking a little bit about skills and knowledge required. The web server is a Linux virtual machine, and I start snooping around. Skills required: some detailed knowledge of Unix. Process tree understanding. I need to know what's running on the system and how you figure out which processes are parents of other processes. File system detailed knowledge, so I can try to suss out what might be stored on the system and where it might be. And detailed understanding of our web server, because oddly enough, it seems to be quiet. Host-based network utilities and understanding. So just trying to understand everything we can about what's coming to and from this system and how I determine that from the system itself. I don't see any odd services running, and I know how to look. It just doesn't appear to be there. But the server's really sluggish. On to 822. We're not finding much on the server, but I look at the network traffic. Well, the skills we need here, TCP dump. If you're not familiar with TCP dump, it's one of those tools that you probably should take a look at. Advanced network knowledge, say header parsing, IP addressing, routing, all of those things that go into figuring out what you're looking at on a piece of network wire. And parsing hexadecimal. Well, it looks like the network folks are right. There's a ton of BitTorrent traffic. And I can now see that not from the router's perspective, but from this server's perspective, which is the one we believe is compromised. And it's not on the standard ports. It's an oddball ports. They're apparently trying to be stealthy. Header and traffic analysis, though, tells us yes, though, it really is BitTorrent. A little later, I must have missed something. How could I not have seen the BitTorrent server? I look again. Well, the skills we need now, advanced knowledge of the file system, because I got to go looking for the server executable, advanced knowledge of the process tree and how they interact, for example, using LSOF to figure out what files are open. At this point, you're using every tool you know of to gather information from this system. It could be Windows, it could be Unix, it could be OS X. You need detailed knowledge of how to pull interesting bits of information out of the system in order to understand what's happening. One interesting aspect of what attacker software is that it often tries to hide itself. In this case, we'll see what actually occurred. Understanding of rootkits and how they work. This was in fact a rootkit compromise. The rootkit was able to successfully hide the process from the process tree tool. In fact, what it did is it overwrote the process tree examination tools that I had available to me. So it just wasn't reporting itself. And probably critically, some humility in understanding that we may never find out what's really happening. Once a system is compromised at this level, as a rootkit, or anything really deep into the operating system, what's going on there may have effectively hidden itself from view. As a forensic examiner with an infinite amount of time available, you can go after it. You can go take a look. We don't usually have that luxury. At this level, often the right answer is to wipe this system completely out and start from scratch with your backups. And that's where the humility part comes in. Don't believe you can necessarily remove all of the tendrils of whatever badness this is from the system. So from LSOF, though, we'd find something interesting. There's nothing interesting in the process tree, but LSOF tells us there's a file open called biteme 0x08, 0x08, 0x08. If you look up in an ASCII table what 0x08 is, that's the backspace character. And gee, exactly enough backspaces to backspace across the entire word biteme. Interestingly enough, the way Unix treats this as a file name is to not display anything. But it's a real directory. And yeah, so we needed to go look at an ASCII table because I didn't remember what the backspace character was. All right, we're still Monday, and we've gotten all the way to 9:25. Believe me, in person, this day was going slower than it is today. Meetings called by management. They want to know what is going on. Bad stuff's happening, our revenue's in the toilet, we need to figure out what's up. I explain my current findings and conclude somebody's rooted our web server. By the way, in management speak, I have to be a little less concise. I need to explain what that means. We don't know how, why, or who yet. We just know that it's done. Without knowing the how, we may be wasting our time rebuilding with the same tools. For example, if all we do is recreate the exact situation we had before the compromise, whoever did the compromise still can do it again, and probably will. Just rebuilding right now would be a huge mistake, because we would have to do it again and again and again. So I suggest we do it anyway, because it'll buy us some time. Management right now is concerned about revenue. While the site's down, we're not making any money. And it may be that this attacker is going to attack us again, install BitTorrent again, and crank up whatever it is they had going before. But in the meantime, we're making money. So we proceed. I should mention too, by the way, it's not always a perfect world for information assurance. We don't always get to do what we think really is the right thing from an IA perspective, because often business triumphs, and it should. So management isn't willing to provide redundancy, so we're going to have to wait while somebody runs to Fries for a couple of new disk drives, so that I can preserve some evidence here. I want to be able to capture this and keep stuff. So we're a little bit stymied here, and we send a minion to buy a disk. I can't remember who this minion was, but it was a very helpful minion. I don't have a lot of time right now, but I'll start capturing as much ephemeral data as possible, because as soon as that disk comes back, it's on my plate to rebuild everything. And I have to stop data collection and build the site. So the skills I need, mostly stuff we've already talked about, network captures and so on. And dumping kernel RAM to disk was critical in this case. And not the least, convincing a coworker to go get a quad-tall Americano so I can survive for the next hour or two, since he's already headed down there anyway. And changing into a weird directory. The command required to change into that Byte Me directory is a long and complicated thing and doesn't occur naturally in nature. So a little bit of advanced Unix knowledge. So 1056, no disk yet. Looking at the files, we find, we are able to CD into that directory and find out we've actually become a site that is supplying stolen software to the world. This is an interesting point in the investigation. We're being harmed, and our website is down, but every person that downloads a piece of stolen software from our website is also harming the copyright holder for that website. Or, I'm sorry, not for the website, the copyright holder for that stolen software. So through our infrastructure, through our own utility, we're now directly harming others by leaving this site up. Now we get the lawyers involved, because we've got decisions to make, and decisions that we need to make very quickly. So there's a lot of it out there. It's using up 97% of your 145 megabits per second of the internet. And we realized that Ed gave us his single-shot caramel raspberry latte with a spritz of mint and 3 sugars instead of your Americano. And apparently, Ed got our Americano. And we hear that shortly. Situation has changed. We now know that our infrastructure is being used to commit a crime. Most likely our lawyers are going to tell us, shut it down now. We probably are going to call law enforcement coincidental with this. Law enforcement may actually tell us the opposite. Do not shut it down. We need to figure out who these people are. We need to have more data. It's never easy having this piece of the conversation, never clear how it's going to come out. The crime is ongoing and we have knowledge of it. Damages for this sort of thing, for distributing stolen software, are often counted in number of incidents. So 50,000 people download, 50,000 incidents, each associated potentially with a fine. We have the power to stop it all right now. We can just pull the plug. But the business will suffer. Well, turns out right now the business is already suffering. The website's pretty much toast. So the skills we require: minor knowledge of the law, really rely on others for that, but it's a good idea to have some base knowledge so that you know how to talk to them. Calmness in the face of the emergency and the horrifying latte that you were provided. And the ability to convey the problem to legal and management. The ability to tell your legal team especially what's really happening and what the implications are from your perspective is a learned skill, and one that you need to cultivate.